Hello, everyone, and welcome to the new season of the Purposeful Life Show with your host, Adrian Starks. I'm excited to share some new updates of the show with you, starting with a new look, sound, and energy, as well as a variety of guests coming aboard with intriguing topics of conversation. I hope you enjoy the new level of energy that will be brought to the show. Thank you for all of your support since the very beginning in 2019. Wow, it's been 3 years already? Because of you, the Purposeful Life Show is now in the top 5% of all podcasts globally, and we aim to get it into the top 1%. Continue listening to the show and share it with others. You can also now listen to the show on my Facebook page at Adrian Starks, where you can comment in real time and communicate with me about your aha moments. Thank you again for all of your support, and let's make this one hell of a year and be purposeful about doing that. Wishing you all much love and success. If it's one thing that is guaranteed, it is that we will continue to face challenges throughout our careers. These experiences can quite often be unintended endings that can be shocking, disappointing, frustrating, and just tiresome. Are you facing this kind of challenge with a business, client, job, or a relationship? Do you feel like you are cruising along, feeling good with a cool breeze in your face, and suddenly there was an abrupt stop, so sudden and unexpected that you were thrown out of your seat without knowing why and where you are? On this episode, I speak with guest Stephen Melville to discuss how to get back into the driver's seat of your circumstances by having a certain mind in uncertain times.
Welcome to the Purposeful Life Show on the Connect Now podcast with your host, Adrian Starks. If you're looking for the ideas that could be your breakthrough for change in your business, career, or personal life, then this podcast is for you. Join Adrian as he speaks on topics of personal and professional development for the person behind the business, and interviews a variety of entrepreneurs, business owners, and thought leaders to reveal their ideas and solutions to success and its challenges. Subscribe to the show and leave us a review. It's time to connect, learn, and grow.
Well, welcome back to the Purposeful Life Show on the Connect Now podcast. I'm your host, Adrian Starks, and let's get another episode going here. I'm very excited about this episode that I'm going to talk about today with you with a special friend of mine named Stephen Melville. This guy's just incredible. But before I do that, let's just have you go ahead here and make sure you download this podcast into your favorite podcast platform if you haven't already, and go ahead and subscribe to the show so you can be on the lookout for the next episodes coming up weekly. But let's get into this here. What can I say about this guy that's going to be on with us today? Stephen Melville. I met him over a year ago through a mutual friend, my fiance, and this man has lived up to every expectation that I have heard about him. And he truly lives from the heart, and he's a magnificent leader who knows how to help people navigate through uncertain times. He said, Adrian, during uncertain times, you got to have a certain mind. And I was like, whoa. Now that is something I want to talk about. Blew my mind, literally. And that's why I have him on the show today, because I think we can all use a lot of good information coming from Stephen, who knows about how to navigate these challenging times. So let's talk a little bit about Stephen. Stephen here has over 10 years experience in the hospitality, tourism, and events sector. He also has much experience in the event industry as an association leader and advocate. He's a business-to-business connector, and overall, he loves to see everyone in his community succeed through challenges. Not only is he a spectacular leader, Stephen is a loving father and husband. A husband to a wife, Angela, who I've met. She's absolutely incredible. A father to a great son whose name is Nixon, who's 4 years of age. And Stephen has been married for over 6 years. When we talk about success, I find that there's so many people, they have success in business, but then they don't have much success in family life. Stephen has figured out a way to merge the two, ladies and gentlemen, and that's what I call true balance. So, Stephen, I want to thank you for taking out time today to be on the show, and I am excited to share with the audience what your experiences are on changes, as in that's my language, you know it, through uncertain times with a certain mind. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Oh, Adrian, this is by far an honor, and hearing that introduction, I don't know. I don't know if we should continue on because I think I'm just gonna relax and just take all those words in and make that into such a fantastic euphoric feeling of positivity, great energy, and I'm just looking forward to this conversation. So, no, the honor is all mine, my friend.
You see why I wanted Steven on this show, ladies and gentlemen. This is why. Just amazing guy. You can't help but like him. I mean, I just really have found a great relationship with Steven, and Steven lives up to his word. Like, this man is all about helping people in the community connect, and he wants to see people succeed. So, speaking of seeing people succeed, let's just go ahead and talk about the elephant in the room here with the things that are going on in 2021 that are actually results from 2020. And a lot of people right now are feeling like, man, I need some help. I need someone to reach out and give me a hand. I need to connect with different people. I need to get in groups. I need to find something that's going to allow me to feel anchored. And so today we're going to talk about what it means to have a certain mind in these uncertain times. And I want to get first the perspective on changes, Stephen. I mean, when you think of change, what do you think of? I mean, is it something that you think good about, or do you just say, you know, it happens? Or what is your perspective on change, particularly when it comes to what you call the phrase unintended endings?
So, Adrian, the phrase came up to me when I was listening to you and your fiance Katie on a power outer with talking about uncertain times, adapting with change. To me, you're the ultimate change expert in my life. I mean, obviously,
Thank
my
you.
wife helps me gear through everything. I've got such the love and support with my family and all those, and you as well. And I would say that with change, I look at change. It seems like every year that I get older, I look at change just a little bit more differently as it comes and goes with the ebbs and flows of life. So, and I think what helps is literature. I'm a big fan of leadership books. I'm part of a book club called a leader. It's called Chillax Leader Meetup, and we take an hour out of our week, talk about the teachings in each chapter within the book that we're reading, and the theme. It's funny, since I've started with this group, and it's been a while. It seems like every book helps with what is happening in my life at that current time and moment. Which
Yeah.
to me, I don't know if some sort of energy is just reaching out, be saying like, Steve, keep going with it, keep going with it. You got to keep reading the books. You got to keep reading the chapters. You got to keep with it, because it seems like every single book corresponds with what I'm living in that present moment in time. So what helps me with change is this recent book that I've read. It's by a famed author, Dr. Henry Cloud, and Necessary Endings is the title. So here's what we can take away that and I'm reading from the book as well. Or sorry,
Okay.
I'm reading from the insert of the book, just kind of give the whole thing. It's so know when to have a realistic hope and when to execute a necessary ending in business or with an individual. Identify which employees, projects, activities, relationships are worth nurturing and which are not. Overcomes people's resistance to change and create change that works. Create urgency and an action plan for what's important. And stop wasting resources needed for the things that really matter. So that's those are
Cool.
some key takeaways right there. So how it can relate to change right in this current moment of my life is that I had an unintended, or it wasn't a necessary ending. It was an unintended ending that happened beyond my control with a position that I had really clear goals and objectives, and sadly, with the current state of our current climate, things had changed. And while it was sudden, I do this thing. It's called mental modeling, or
Mental
it's a
modeling.
way to
Okay.
prepare myself. It's a way to prepare myself should the occurrence happen. And
Okay.
so I have I have these moments in my brain where it feels like I'm daydreaming. To the outsider, it's daydreaming. But to me, I'm preparing myself for inevitable when I have downtime, when I'm in a trance state.
Okay.
I imagine myself in that moment of time as like, what are these scenarios in which I could choose to do given the certain situation. And to me, that helps with kind of preparing for worst case scenario.
I like that. You mentioned the phrase mental modeling, which immediately put me into this thought process of preparing for something that may happen. And when it does happen, you're responsive to it instead of reactive to it. Because a lot of people, they react, and then there's
Correct.
more of a fight or
Mm-hmm.
flight response versus when you're responding to something, that mental modeling you mentioned, it doesn't mean that you're not going to feel like the blow of it. It just means that you're ready for it and you're
Yeah.
thinking to yourself, okay, what do I do next? What is the next step preceding this particular occurrence? I think that's fascinating, Stephen. I think that people now can use a lot more of mental modeling. I'm going to actually write that down in my notes, man. Thank you.
Hey, anytime. And I can't take all the credit. I read it in a book somewhere, and every book that I read, I always take one thing away. And one of them
Mm.
was about mental modeling. And so I figure, like, I remember sitting in a room with our group and saying, like I daydream all the time. Like when I'm in such a calm or transitive state,
Hmm.
I think about scenarios in my brain. And I'll throw out my life. I was saying you got to snap out of it. You have to tell yourself to tell your brain to stop at the moment, because there could be other things that I could be doing that may be more productive in that time. But
Hmm.
and I remember I remember telling one person who's a counselor in our group, and he said, it's like, you're not daydreaming, you're mental modeling. And I said,
Mm.
okay, this is a gift. This is a gift.
It is certainly a gift.
And
Wow, mental
and I
modeling.
think also too, it helps with in scenarios that occurred that I don't plan for.
Hmm.
But in that fight or flight response, I don't let the fear hijack me. I let
Hmm.
it I use that energy in a way to motivate, if you catch my drift. In that fight or response, it's not necessarily like when I'm scared. I want to actually go into the fire and maybe explore it a little bit about
Hmm.
maybe what the next steps look like, what that scenario looks like. In the moment, it's scary, and I'll admit, like, there's definitely reluctance in the start. But again, I need to process it in my brain. I need to model it in my brain, and it's not so scary
Hmm.
anymore. And
I
that
like
happens
that.
pretty quick. Like, I would say, give me like maybe an hour tops, or maybe 2 hours tops. No, let's say 2 hours tops. Give me a moment. I'll
Okay.
think about it. I'll listen to feedback and advice, and then I will kind of look on the other side and use that to say, okay, how can I facilitate this change is happening whether I like it or not? But how can I wait to facilitate to be a positive experience that could also not just benefit me but others?
Beautiful. So that's the process of the certain mind that you were talking about. To go back to that phrase, uncertain time, certain mind. So in an uncertain situation, you're actually saying, okay, this is happening. What's the best process of dealing with this? And
Mm-hmm.
then you put that mental model picture together, which you just mentioned, and that allows you to be able to deal with that situation accordingly and move on from it. This is absolutely fascinating, Stephen. So when you're doing this,
Mm-hmm.
actually what you're doing is you're creating your own circumstance. I think it was Bruce Lee. And for you guys that are listening
Mm-hmm.
today, I think you might know who Bruce Lee is. Quite
He's the
the
kung fu
legendary
master.
martial artist.
Mm-hmm.
And he said something that made me laugh, but it was very, like, for him, he's a very profound, philosophical individual, but it was just this punchline. He said, to hell with circumstances, I create opportunities. And I
Mm-hmm.
was like, whoa, coming from Bruce
Mm-hmm.
Lee, that's interesting. When you just
Mm-hmm.
said, reminded me of that. You're given something, but yet you're
Mm-hmm.
saying, no, you can model yourself in a way that you deal with it, but then you move out of it, which is absolutely fascinating. And to your experience you mentioned earlier about that unintended ending, look at you
Mm-hmm.
now. Ladies and gentlemen, Stephen is like this individual who has so much influence, and I have seen him in action, and I continue to see him in action online with entrepreneurs and business owners. I mean, he's got quite the influence. So I want to talk to you about with the changes. So you talked to us about responding to change, but for the entrepreneurs listening here, I would like to ask you a question about the changes in the market and how can someone today, during these uncertain times, make some changes that will allow them to maybe market themselves a little bit better in an industry that is constantly changing, especially with everything moving online? I mean, how do they stand out? Because, ladies and gentlemen, Steven stands out. Not only is he an amazing guy, he's at 6'5", right?
6'5",
and a
yeah.
half, 6'6". I was gonna say 6'6", but he does
Oh
more
man,
than
my
just
head is getting
a
so
great
big just listening to
personality.
you right now.
Man, you and I can talk all day. But Steven, he stands 6'5". But here's the funny thing about this guy. Here's an amazing thing: 6'5", but yet he meets you at your level. Think about that.
I like that.
When he's standing next to you, he's not standing over you. He's standing with you. That's what I got from Steven. And I'm not a tall guy at all, by any means. So when I'm standing next to Steven, I'm thinking, oh man, this guy just, he could dunk on me all day. I could jump as high as I want. He just dunk on me. But at the same time, you feel like you're walking with this guy. And so in this industry, your ability to connect entrepreneurs, businesses, and people together that's constantly evolving, what would you say that people can do now in a self-marketing industry that is changing? What can they do? What should they do?
What should they do? What could they do? Actually, a question for you, Adrian. Do you think it's easy just to pack it up and say, I quit? Do you think it's that easy?
No.
I know people will say, well, it seems like it's easy. The easy response would just say, pack it up, I quit. But is it really that easy? I don't think it is.
It's not that easy. And that's a good question. I don't think that's easy at all. I've had to do that more than a few times, and it is not an easy thing.
No, I didn't think so. And, I hear that a lot of phrases, a lot of the time it's just like, well, the easiest part is just giving up. But it's only easy if you give up if your heart is out of it. If your heart is gone, if it doesn't serve you, it's easy to say I quit. But if there's a part of that that's still, that has that grab and hold onto your heart and your passion, it's actually it's actually easier than you might think to make a change, pivoting. It seems like the word of 2020 that's spilling over to 2021.
Yeah.
And I think with maybe I'm just at peace with turning the page of the new year, thinking that it would achieve a different result. It is in a sense of there is some positivity happening in our world today, but it's going to take some time. So we have to hone in on what's going to serve us today that will help us get to the other side of tomorrow.
I love that.
Whatever that looks like. Yeah. So instead of with if we're looking at just the event context of just in person, that's not happening right now. So we have to adapt to online. A lot of things are online. Webinars online. Event planners are actually learning new skill sets of essentially being television or movie producers, being the back scene and directing, creating programs, and completely shifting the focus on how to keep surviving with the hope of thriving for tomorrow. Learning new skill sets can definitely help with a business model that was predominantly in person. Obviously, we want to do in person because I'm definitely an in person connector. I love to in person. The idea of online fatigue. Yes, it's real, but it's what we have right now. We're still connecting online for the time being, or socially distanced gatherings with just immediate family, or obviously we got to follow the provincial health orders. If there's anything that I have to, if I have to really sell, it's like we got to do the work now in order to get to the other side. So if this is what it means to pivot over for this moment in time, then we got to do it. But at the same time too, we could also be prepared, have a plan for when we have that change happen for tomorrow, that we're ready for it.
Be prepared and have a plan. And you also said something that really made me think a good aha moment of, if you're not doing something from the heart, it will be easy to quit.
Yes.
That struck me because there's so many of us, we've all been down that road where we're doing things our heart's not really in it. Yet we do it anyway because we think that's going to lead us to where we really want to go, where our heart truly is. And sometimes it does, but a lot of times it doesn't. And this goes back to the change. If you're on a pathway and you're feeling right now that it's not going anywhere, the question remains, do you stay on that pathway or do you get off and get on the correct one for yourself? And I find that a lot of times the unintentional endings end up being something that uproots us and puts us onto a better pathway. I've had that happen to me quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, too, it's good for us to be open to opportunities. Like you were saying, Stephen, in an industry that's constantly changing, are you
Mm-hmm.
improving your skill set? Are you
Mm-hmm.
adapting or pivoting, as that key phrase is,
Mm-hmm.
to something that's changing? It reminds me of this model between Netflix and Blockbuster. Stevie, you remember Blockbuster, don't you?
I remember having a Blockbuster card every Friday. My dad, myself, my brother, my mom, we would have our specific movies we'd have for pizza and movie night, and we always went down to Blockbuster. Sometimes Rogers, but the go-to was always Blockbuster.
See, that's the experience, that nostalgia that it brings back to us. Like, I feel the same way when I think about Blockbuster. It was this
Mm-hmm.
first time of bringing the theater experience to the home. Well,
Mm-hmm.
here's the problem that happened. Netflix happened.
Yep.
Netflix was like this little brother that said, "Blockbuster, can we play with you on your playground?" And Blockbuster was like, "No." So Netflix offered a deal to Blockbuster in 2000 saying, "Hey, we would like for you to buy our company for $50 million." Well, the CEO of Blockbuster said no, and he laughed at Netflix. Literally walked
Okay.
out of the meeting.
Okay.
Well, Netflix took it hard. They said, "Okay, what do we do? Blockbuster doesn't want to buy into us." They went to the drawing board, Stephen. They went back to the marketplace and said, okay, what can we do to build our skill set? All right, well,
Mm-hmm.
they started sending DVDs through the mail. They started sending
Yeah.
DVDs to kiosks, so like where you could actually go to a kiosk at a store or
Mm-hmm.
anywhere and buy your DVD so you didn't have to go into the building. You had that
Mm-hmm.
independence building. Then they
Mm-hmm.
moved into streaming online, which now everyone is doing.
Mm-hmm.
So get this, Netflix now is worth $194 billion dollars versus
Even
50 million back in 2000. Do you think that CEO of Blockbuster is probably thinking about that deal that he left on the
yeah.
table?
Yeah.
I think so.
Yep.
So this is a prime example
Yeah.
of change.
It's also a good example of the story of David and Goliath.
Hmm.
Goliath
It
didn't
is. It truly is.
Goliath didn't think at that time of not just about the future, but Goliath had that mindset of these Netflix can't get to the level where they are, right?
Hmm.
But Netflix, being David, had nothing to lose at that point. Blockbuster didn't realize that they had everything to lose by saying no to that deal,
Hmm.
and that comes with a finite mindset.
Yeah, and not being flexible, not seeing what can change. So to the entrepreneurs listening today, to our people in the industry and in the marketplaces, wherever your fields of interest are, be mindful of what happened with the Netflix Blockbuster model. And also, to think about what Steven's been talking about today, this idea of preparing for things that will possibly come to an end or change on you. Now, we're not saying to walk around and be negative and be like, oh, this is not going to work. What we're saying is, are you
Mm-hmm.
being adaptive to the things that are changing? And Steven knows a lot about this because Steven is constantly seeing different faces, different people of
Mm-hmm.
backgrounds, people of expertise. He comes across multiple people, but yet he's able to adapt to each one and help each person. Steven is actually connected with me with so many people. And I'm like, thank you, because he has that ability to do that. And that's why I wanted Steven on the show to show what leadership is really about. It's not about what you have, it's about what you do with what you have. Steven mentioned resources. Well, this guy is about being resourceful. He takes his resources and he puts them into action for himself, for you. And I want to talk about the resources. So, Stephen, with your resources, you're with Fraser Valley Events Planning Association. And I know that that's where I've actually been able to see you in action in
Mm-hmm.
person. And this guy can run a room, let
Mm-hmm.
me tell you. he can he can get
Mm-hmm.
people together. He can make sure people are paying attention. He can make sure things are in order. And it takes a lot to bring varying personalities, varying leaderships, varying attitudes, varying expertise in an area all at once and run it with an open mind and open heart. Yeah, let's talk about
Mm.
that, Stephen. So, what is that like for you to be in that kind of environment with such different, varying people of with great knowledge?
Can I tell you? Can I be vulnerable with you for a moment?
Sure, of course.
Excellent. I get nervous every single time I have to do a meeting. Every time. But once I'm on there, no one has,
Hmm.
whether folks like it or not, they have no choice but to listen to what I have to say.
I like that. I love
uh,
that.
so in the moment, I use that fuel as an energy. I get into a rhythm, and I
Hmm.
therefore, I I guess maybe the training I had at the Vancouver Film Studio or Film School had some sort of impact on my life in that respect. Just because I think I'm on a stage and I'm performing with
Hmm.
facts, data, and teachings that from information that I've soaked in
Hmm.
with sharing out to my community. To me, that's how you build it.
I like that a
And I
lot.
never think that it's just all on me. Yeah, I have such a rock. I just have a rock star solid board.
Hmm.
To me, that's a make or break. You got to have a good board to get the backing of the initiatives you want to create and do, and create not just create buy-in, but also involvement.
Hmm.
And I just can't thank the board of directors of Fraser Valley Land Planning for all the hard work. There's some long term members. They've seen a lot. They haven't seen this pandemic before.
Hmm.
They've seen a market crash. They've
Hmm.
never seen a pandemic.
Hmm.
But I got a great support system who we share ideas. We bring all the ideas to the
Hmm.
table, and we collectively together make it happen.
Well, let me tell you, when I do see you in action, I never would have thought you were nervous. And this is why I think the leadership that you provide to people is quite valuable and unique, because for someone to say this on the air that they are nervous, that's true leadership, because there's so many people right now are saying that, well, I have everything together, I never get nervous, I'm fearless.
No.
Please, everybody's got some fears.
Yeah.
Yeah, fears keep us alive, keep us from doing dumb stuff that would take us off the plane. So you got to have some kind of fear, and for someone to say I'm fearless, and no, and I will
Mm.
provide my vulnerability as well too. I get nervous every time I get on a podcast or I get on stage, because I know,
No way. I
yes I
don't
do,
believe it.
yes
I
I
don't
do,
believe it.
but like you, my friend, when the wheels start turning, people can't shut me up.
And I guess that's why we
At
connect
that
so well,
point,
man. That's how I feed off your energy, you
we
feed off
connect.
mine, and it's a beautiful relationship. It really is. I gotta say, I love it.
Yes, it is. For the people listening today, surround yourself with people who
Mm.
uplift you.
Yep.
I cannot fathom that enough. Surround yourself with people who uplift you. They know what they're doing, they know how to help, and they actually
Mm-hmm.
care. Steven actually cares, and that's why I want people to understand what it's like to be a leader, but also have a heart at the same time. Steven, I we talked a lot about the change today, and you provided us with some great gold nuggets, and I'll go back and recap that for
Mm-hmm.
our audience here. But I want to talk a little bit next about you as a person. You mentioned before that you have been married for over 5 years. You've got a wonderful son named
Mm-hmm.
Nixon, and you have a great
Mm-hmm.
balance between what you are passionate about doing and also your passion for family
Mm-hmm.
life, which is so
Mm-hmm.
healthy for us. What are some things that you like to do? Like, if we were to catch Steven Melville on a day where he's just relaxing, what are some things that you like to do to let your mind settle a bit and just take care of you?
Oh, what do I do to take care of me? Ah, exercise is key, man. Exercise is key to a
Yeah.
building block of me. Yeah.
Okay.
Health and
Exercise,
wellness
good.
is
Yeah.
kay. Yeah, like sometimes for my lunch break, I got a set of dumbbells that. So I'm sitting in my office and I got a couple dumbbells that are just sitting by my feet. They could be footstools, or I could actually use them to their full potential. So I'll take a break. I'll do some arm curls and get back at it in terms of my respective duties as a professional. Going for
Hmm.
walks, getting fresh air. Uh, Big time skier. I grew up in the snow. I'm born in January. I'm a snow baby, and I'm okay with that. I will not apologize for loving the snow and exploring. Oh my goodness, there's just so much creativeness that we can explore in
Hmm.
this world of ours. even on a micro level. It's really cool to kind of see some aspects of where you live and maybe going at it in a different lens, looking at it in a different lens, sorry. And just kind of admire what's around us because we live in a beautiful part of the world, man.
I like that. So it looks like you have a variation of things you like to do.
Yeah, but then I like sports. I like all sports. NFL. And most recently NBA. I started getting into basketball. I know I'm 6'5", and I never really cared for basketball growing up. Can you believe it? Can you believe it?
Um, so so here's the thing. I don't feel sorry for you on that one because I'm gonna tell you right now.
Mm-hmm.
When I was growing up, dude, I wish I was taller. That song, I wish I was a little bit taller.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
carry
Oh
on.
yeah.
6'5", and you didn't really care for basketball. What else? So what did you do?
Yes. But oh man. So hockey. Being a Canadian kid,
Hmm.
hockey pretty much reigns supreme. So did that growing up. Played some hockey. And I love team sports. Team sports is a metaphor for life.
Mm.
Not just any sport. It can be any sport. Team sport. Heck, even a solo sport.
Hmm.
I think all sports are a metaphor for life, man.
I think so.
As my stepfather would say, especially for baseball, because he's an avid baseball fan. Yeah. Let's see what else. I used to row back in the day. I even
Hmm.
went to the BC Summer Games for that. Had a lot of fun competing, getting medals, competing against some high level boarding schools in Victoria. I look at all the kind of the building block steps of life, and it's just kind of made me who I am today. And I wouldn't change a thing. It's just been a really cool journey so far, and I'm looking forward to continuing on this journey for it as long as I'm on this planet because it's a beautiful planet, and I love looking at it through this lens.
I love that, man, and I like how you said that everything is an experience up until now, because we are an accumulation of experiences and people we've come across and all the things we've faced. We're some of all that. And
Mm-hmm.
you represented some of a lot of the things that
Mm-hmm.
you have gone through and you have experienced and even accomplished. And it's so fantastic. So, today, to recap what we talked about, and Stephen, I want to thank you again for being on the show, for providing golden nuggets for us today to really take
Oh,
back with us
thanks.
and invest in ourselves. And you had a few things, actually, a couple of things that captured me. The one was the mind modeling of when we have
Mm-hmm.
something going on, that we can put a model in
Mm-hmm.
our head of what we want to do in response to that thing. So, for the people listening
Mm-hmm.
today, you may be facing an uncertain time right now, as we all do. But if you're really facing one and you really want to change something about it, as Stephen would say, we have to really think about what do we want to model? What do we want to put out there in the environment to move through that? Because that becomes the certainty that we operate from, as opposed to putting our energy on what's going wrong right now. Stephen
Mm-hmm.
also talked about having passion, operating from the heart. If you're on a pathway and your heart's not in it, then most
Mm-hmm.
likely you're going to quit. And if you're
Mm-hmm.
on a pathway and your heart's not in it, do you really stay on that pathway? Do you choose a different pathway? There's a lot to be said about change. And right now, you may be in a position where your heart's not in something. Okay, so what do you do about that right now? Well, you have to ask yourself, why are you doing it? Why are you on the pathway? What are your options? What happens if this pathway closes? And this is what Stephen means by the unintended endings, because sometimes things will close on you, doors will shut. And when they do, if you don't have the mind model, as Stephen mentioned, then you won't be able to gain momentum through that. I want to thank you, Stephen, for providing us with those powerful tools today, because you actually have inspired me because of how you stand out and how you market yourself, because his marketing is not just what he does, it's who he is, ladies and gentlemen. And for providing us with ways of seeing ourselves in the market that's constantly evolving. And once again, Stephen said, building your skill set. So, what is your skill set right now? What do you need to elaborate on a little bit more? And I would encourage you to look up Stephen Melville, go to social media. He's on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I would say probably LinkedIn is the best.
go to LinkedIn to look him up, Stephen Melville. I'll put his notes in the comment section of this podcast, so you can click on that and go straight to LinkedIn to give a holler out to him or to ask him any questions or to even see how you can connect with him and get him to connect with you, because I think that it'll be really worth the experience for you. And Stephen, I want to thank you again, my friend, for such a wonderful experience being on the show. We had great laughs, and you really taught me some things, and I'm just so happy to have you here, man.
Oh, Adrian, I gotta say this, when you've asked me to be on your podcast, I was mentally modeling of what I wanted to talk about, because there's so many things, especially with the times that we're in. There's just so many. I mean, it could be a finite or a non-finite way of kind of looking at life in the moment, but I like to think I'm a generally positive person. When I'm in a room full of people I don't know, I like to splash some positive energy. And I think overall it just helps with the mood and the tempo on how we look just in our present lives, and therefore getting us to having a successful future. So Adrian, no, honestly, thank you. This has been a fantastic experience. It's my first ever podcast. How did I do?
You did absolutely wonderful. And Stephen, you're a natural. Even if you get nervous before you get into any room, you're still a natural at it. And I want to thank you for showing up today and just bringing your vulnerable self, because that is what leadership is about. We all know this, ladies and gentlemen. Everyone wants you to think that they're perfect and they have everything together because they want you to follow them. No. Follow the people who are leading by the examples of what you want to see in your life. Someone who's open, who's honest, who's vulnerable. That, to me, in my books, is a true leader. Thank you, Stephen, for being a leader. Thank you for everyone for listening today. And remember this, in uncertain times, to make those changes that you need to make, you got to have a certain mind. You got to fix your mind on something that is meaningful, put your heart into it, and if you need to get off the path to get onto a different path, be courageous enough to do that, because if the market is changing, the world is changing, well, my friends, so should you. Until then, we'll see you in the next episode.
Thank you for listening to the Purposeful Life Show on the Connect Now podcast with your host, Adrian Starks. Subscribe to the show and connect with us on Facebook and Instagram. Learn more about us by visiting our website at cnbn.ca. Go to connectnowpodcast.com to be inspired by more life-changing content. Let's connect, learn, and grow.